Welcome to Personal Mastery Training. I'm your host, Alvin Brown, former world class athlete turned entrepreneur and consultant. Join us as we learn from guests who have conquered their inner battles and share their journeys to success. Get ready for inspirational masterclasses and thought provoking strategy sessions to fuel your path to personal mastery. Let's dive in. Everybody, welcome to another episode of Personal Mastery Training, the Alliance. It's Ray and I today, and next week we should be back with the crew, Brandon and Dr. Charlie. But for today, here's what we're going to serve up today. A really important conversation. And remember, if you're just joining us in this podcast, it's all about personal mastery. And the key word is a training piece. Yeah. Training means you're never not in training, and life is like that. I don't think there's actually a destination you get to where you know all, be all, and everything. So we are in training every time. We do on this call is we throw ideas out, we throw thoughts out, and we remove the word quote, and we call them wisdom. We throw old wisdoms that have been left behind to you. We dissect it, we pull it apart. We call it preparing the meal, the soul food for your soul. And so today we want to talk about this conversation on something that if you call yourself a go-getter, a goal setter, a goal achiever, someone who is focused, dedicated to the grind, someone who is going for it on a daily basis, setting new goals, achieving them, knocking them down, you're going to hit this one day. And the thing is to recognize it. It's called burnout. It's something that I realize that I was going through it this week or even a couple of weeks. I've probably been going through it for a while, mind you, but it really hit me as I sat back and thought about why I was doing the things I was doing. And I'll explain that. I'll dive into it a bit more. So it hit me. But here's the thing. I realized a few things. One, your strength can be your weakness. It often is. So this idea of, as they say, if you want something done, you give it to a busy person, because that person tends to say yes and execute. While the person who's always looking for a reason not to do something will always find a reason not to do something. So if you want something done, give it to a busy person. But the problem with the busy person is they say yes, 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 and keep taking on more things because they think they can do it. So eventually, and it's very subtle, it's insidious, you start to experience the signs of burnout. But the first thing you have to do is admit it. First of all, recognize it, then admit it. It's no different than any other addiction, alcohol, whatever it is. You have to first do the tough thing, recognize it. And for goal achievers and go getters, and they find it hard to say, yeah, no, I can't do that, or I'm not capable, or I'm not able right now to do it. And that's where you need to step back. I never respected that. So some of the signs that I was going through in the last few weeks, and some of you know my story, deeper story. I've gone through some really, tragic loss, and so on. And I've been the pillar, stood strong in the pocket, and held it down, and I felt good, relatively good about my state, hanging in there, and I'm not pushing back the loss, but I'm healthy. I felt healthy. I felt no deep regrets, no sorrow, none of the things regret, nothing death defying that's stopping me. I felt pretty good going through it. But then I started to realize I'm doing little things, uh, procrastinating more than often, uh, you know, time wasters, diving into time wasters, pushing things back, forgetfulness about things, not the usual, my usual strict writing things down, and even planning and goal setting, and building the steps and stages to going after that goal and being motivated for that goal. And I'm also now, which is a good thing, sometimes I am really leaning into essentialism, which is looking at where I'm spending my time, and my energy has become even more important to me, which are all great things, but they're great things if they're being done for the right reasons. But I'm actually doing them because of my mental load, my bandwidth, let's call it. My bandwidth is at its maximum. My gigabytes have been used up. So the conversation now is, what do we do about it? First, recognize it, and then what do we do about it? So, but before we get into that, I'm going to hand it over to Ray to deliberate here, to throw in his, because I'm sure he's also a go-getter. He's a lion. He goes after it, and many of you are. So let's discuss that.
Mm. You make a great point, Alvin, especially when you start off by saying that our strengths are also our weaknesses,
Mhm.
because the more we move forward, the more we start to understand that it's not always about like what we have and who we are. It's also very important to know how to use how to use that stuff. You know,
Mhm.
how we use that stuff makes a big uh, difference, and it happens to everyone. We get in slumps sometimes that we feel like we have a tough time uh, getting out of. Um, I try to see it in different steps, okay, in different steps. Again, as a process, I just find that processes set you free uh,
Mhm.
because you move yourself away from the situation. You follow a path that if you repeat enough times, you get to have data and you see if that works or if that doesn't work in certain situations. So, for this, for instance, first step when you talk about recognizing it, uh, that's key. That's key because oftentimes, like you said, we're tunnel vision and we just move forward and move forward and move forward, and then we start to change. And then the winning habits we have, they get thrown out the window. And then slowly but surely, okay, this gas tank, these protective layers, they get thrown out. They get thrown out, and we become susceptible to basically burn out to a lot of this stuff. So just being able to recognize it. But how do we do that exactly? I find it's very important to have principles and to have truths. Um, know your truths. And I looked that up, you know, and I'll go just share the definition of what a principle is so everyone really gets to understand, okay, what I'm saying here. Um, a principle is a fundamental truth, rule, or belief that serves as the foundation for how something works, how someone behaves, and how decisions are made. At its core, a principle is something you can consistently rely on to guide actions, decisions, and understanding. So, I take me, for example, if I get to a point where my actions start to become very inconsistent with my goals and who I usually am and the things that I usually do, and I have a tough time getting out of this slump, just the fact that I have principles written in my phone and specific truths that do not waver and do not change, and I can simply read them, truly allows me to step away and actually see the situation for what it is so I can recognize what's really going on. And that's so important, because if we don't know, we don't know. We have no ability to change anything. From there, once we recognize it, as we talked about right before the call, it's very important to admit it. Uh, Also take ownership of it. That's like really the key, I believe, in order to move on to a new stage. Oftentimes, that's what is so important to look at ourselves in the mirror is that we would know something, but we also know deep down that we're not ready to admit it. Okay,
Mhm.
and as long as we're not ready to look at it in the face and admit it. We know we will stay in this slump. There's really no other way. So just by saying it out loud or deep within yourself, it's really just that one moment where your head just at least pops out the water. Your head at least pops out the water just by saying the word. As they say in the movie Jumanji, when you win, you have to call out his name. Same thing. You want to
Mhm.
win here, you have to call out his name. You have to admit it. Third, what I wrote down here is that once you recognize it, you're at a stage where you're not necessarily acting upon it yet, but you're at least seeing it, okay, for what it is for the first time. Then you admit it, but from there, this process starts of just taking a step back, which I believe is very important also, just to start studying it, analyzing it, so you can learn from it and ultimately understand it, you know, really dive to the source of it. So truly, truly study it in every phases so you get to understand, okay, why am I feeling like this exactly? What did I used to do that I don't do anymore that maybe lead to this? And in those things, what is truly important, you know? Um, just to give you guys an example, for me, I have the things that I truly want most in my life that I want to manifest every single day. I have them in a checklist, okay, on my phone, and I'll make sure I remind myself of those every day. But then I have daily power tasks also that I know bring everything together. For example, getting 8 hours of sleep. That's key, okay? Getting 8 hours of sleep, finding time to read, even if it's only for 30 minutes in a day, uh, that's key. Number three is also just working out. Even if it's only 30 minutes a day during the day, it's important to work out, journal, definitely journal. And another moment, it's also spending at least 1 hour uninterrupted with the family. For me, I find that whenever I'm feeling down or I'm in a slump, this is what works for me. And I've seen it over many years. I go back to that and I see, okay, am I doing those things? And usually I find that it's one of the reasons why I'm out of whack if I'm not doing those things. If I can check these boxes, I know the battery's filled up. If I don't consistently over time, there's going to be an issue for sure. Okay, so know your principles, have processes from your principles. Okay, so once you truly study it and you pinpoint, okay, what's going on and you get to understand it, I find that from there, um, that's the next step. That's also a very difficult step sometimes, but you have to set it free, or should I say, set yourself free, from those emotions, because we love to hang on to those emotions. We love to hang on to being mad or hang on to being sad and just staying there when truly what we want is to be happy. What we want is to live. But if we don't take time to study it, if we don't admit it, we just love doing the opposite of what we truly, truly want. So this is kind of how I go about this process. Uh, Sometimes it works very quickly. Sometimes it takes a longer time. And usually, when I really go back to my systems, it's really one of the boxes hasn't been checked for a little while for many different reasons. Now it's just understanding where. But it just shows you we're all different. We all have different things that work for us. What works for me doesn't necessarily work for you. But ultimately, I think it's so important, as Alvin said, just to have the process and understanding to recognize what's going on. But from there, I feel like you cannot recognize what's going on if you don't know what you want in the first place, if you don't know your truths, and if you don't know your principles. So that would be my first advice if I can give one. And
Mm-hmm.
is it good? Is it bad? I don't know, but I think it's pertinent for all of us to be very clear on what our principles for life uh, are. So when it does hit you in the face, you can look at them or look at your coach or look whatever in the face, and they can tell you the truth. They can tell
Mm-hmm.
you the truth that, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you're not a failure, you're failing right now, but you are hardworking, you are this, you are that, you are that. So get back up and go back. Just
Mm-hmm.
by having that written down as a principle for life, you know what to follow.
Yeah.
This is your baseline. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And if you don't, so I love that Ray has the discipline to, first of all, the people who are successful in anything, and this is written in a friend of mine, Dr. Roger Hall, he wrote a book on performance. And he says, he quoted, says, people who are successful, I'm paraphrasing here, but people who are successful aren't successful by luck. It's by structure and by intention. And they usually have rules. Happy families have rules of how they, behave, and happy people. We don't get happy by luck or by chance, fingers crossed, and hopefully one day we wake up and we're happy. It's really happens. And success. Look at some of the greatest people. They're very structured in their behavior and very structured in how they go about their life. And I don't mean being regimented that you can't break it, but having something. You can't just wander on the sea of life without a rudder and hoping, wishing and hoping. I always say this, we're co-creating our life. Meaning there's things you can't control. Forget about it. You can take care of yourself, healthy, and eat, and you may not survive as long as the person who smokes, and okay, so you're co-creating. But the part that you have control over, I say be intentional about it. That way you can get to the destination that you see yourself in whatever time. So I love that Ray has that checklist, a blueprint, a template that he can assess his performance by. And then when his performance drops below those standards, he can then say, yeah, almost like a pilot on an airplane. They have certain checklists they do to make sure everything's running. Even though it's on cruise control, there's things always being checked. Doctors do this in the hospital. Their vital signs they're checking. They're seeing where the trend is of their journey and their health. And so, checking yourself against this template, this blueprint, to see how your journey is going, to see how you're moving forward. So I love that. So that's one remedy that, to recognize, to see if you, again, especially if you're the type who is head down and you have big goals to achieve in your life that need your dedication to do it. Those are the people we're talking to. Those who love achieving things, the game changers, the world changers, the paradigm shifters. So now, what I can say as well, if you don't have this template built out, I'm going to direct you to Stephen Covey. He wrote the he wrote many books on business and performance. And he wrote a book, and in that book he talks about his quadrants, his his four quadrants. And in the book he has a grid, and one is he lists it. The first quadrant, quadrant one, is urgent and important things, things that you're running your fire, your ass is on fire, and you're running every day trying to catch up. Then there's quadrant two, not urgent, but important. This is where you want to hang out. This is the preventative things. These are relationship building. These are seeing opportunities, planning. These are where you want to be. And then there's quadrant three. These are where your distractions, they're not important and they're not urgent, but you're hanging out there. Emails, social media, listening to podcasts, 4 hour podcasts. I mean, that's great. You're learning something, but geez, that's a lot of time lost to just listening to. Maybe if you can multitask. But anyways, they tend to sit and listen to these kind of things. Quadrant four, complete timer. This is busy work, some emails, personal social media. This is all scrolling. What's your friend up to? Get caught in the rabbit hole. Phone calls, time wasters, pleasant activities that are not feeding your soul. So that's a nice quadrant to kind of test yourself by. If you're hanging out in any of the three quadrants, except for quadrant two, which is important, taking care of important items, but they're not urgent. You're way ahead of them. Your taxes are caught up, numbers are sent to the accountant. Your business is you're looking at your metrics, your head, you're on the pulse of what's going on in your business. Then you know you're humming at a good rate. If you're anywhere else, quadrant one, running with your ass on fire, way behind on things, last minute catch ups. You're in quadrant one at that point, and that's a sign of burnout because now you're falling behind and it's mounting. You're putting out fires every day. Quadrant three, you're checking things. You're in meetings that are not, and you're setting them, by the way, and you're just having meetings to have meetings. You're busy work, popular activities, or you're in quadrant four, same thing, time wasters. So it's a great way to check yourself in the Stephen Covey model. In case you haven't done the work like Ray has done and so on, you haven't introspected in a while, it's a great way to check on it. So that's something that I find that I was doing. I was getting great opportunities. Opportunities are not a problem in life. There's a ton of opportunities, but what are you going to take advantage of? I'm blessed to have a ton of opportunities coming my way. And I was noticing I was putting things on the back burner. I was forgetting things. This is where this conversation actually, I was thinking about it because last week I was like, man, I can't get going here. I'm like chugging along. And in fairness, it's one of those dumb moments because why shouldn't I? But again, if you're that type who likes to get things done, I love setting goals. It really puts me in a nice place. I love new things. I love to move. I'm a forward driven person. I love what's new, what's next. Let's go kill it. Let's go crush it, execute. But I was again running in mud, just not moving anywhere. And I was scratching my head going, it really hit me that I was doing this. I thought I was managing pretty well, but it hit me. Yeah, this is burnout. I'm in burnout. So, uh, again, look at yourself, start to investigate yourself. And first of all, let's start with this. Are you a go getter? I'm not talking about the average person who procrastinates on a regular basis. That's just a normal habit. I'm talking about the person who loves to crush goals at work, at home, your personal life, your professional life. And you're finding now you are running in mud, or you're in avoidance, or you're doing busy work, or you're distracted, and you're scratching your head, getting frustrated. This is what I want you to think about. So now I want to switch the gears a little bit and talk about what can we do. So first of all, recognizing you're in it. Second of all, what are the stages of pulling yourself out of it? Slow but sure. It's not going to be overnight, but slow but sure, pulling yourself out of the mud and getting back on solid ground. So Ray, I'm going to pass it to you to dive into that, and then I'll throw my 2 cents in.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Just want to say real quick when you talk about Stephen Covey, um, what I love about all of his books and a lot of the wisdoms that we get from books is that you start to understand a lot of this stuff is simple
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of this stuff is timeless.
Yep.
It's very simple and it's timeless. So let's go back to the question. As you said, the stages of how do we go about this? Okay. Uh, that's great. I talked about the day-to-day power tasks before. Now, here's some details on that. And here's also the issue on that, okay, where we have to beware of that is that a day-to-day power task addresses the now, okay? Addresses the right now. One thing that I can do right now to start checking out of this, stepping out of this, to start creating momentum, positive momentum back. And this positive momentum, if I become consistent at it day to day in the moment, it will ultimately make a difference. But what's very important, I believe, to not put aside and to keep an eye on is, as you know, Alvin, in life, unexpected things happen. Okay. For the unexpected things, we can't necessarily predict that. We cannot get ready for that. We have to kind of adjust in the moment and know what works, and as much as possible be able to recharge the batteries, do what's good for us. But for the things that we can control and ultimately in life, I believe um, that's the main things we should focus on because we do have control over that. It's the midterm and long term things, okay, that are tied to your vision. Again, my next question is, do you have one? If you're a go-getter, that's also the key. It starts with that. As we know, I talked about the how before, but the vision, and I know in TRM they used to teach that. Well, the vision is what 70 times more powerful than knowing how. Okay. So the things that are tied to your long-term and midterm vision are so important because this is quadrant two thinking. Okay. So in the moment, as I'm doing the little things that create momentum, am I making time for what truly matters midterm, long term, and to bringing me real fulfillment? Okay. Real fulfillment, and a type of fulfillment that fires up the battery in a way that maybe not many things can. Okay. Real fulfillment. So, are we making time for quadrant two things? That starts with first having a vision to be able to recognize what those things are and then ultimately putting them into our day to day. When we get pretty good at this, again, I wrote this down here, is that when we get pretty good at this, we get advanced here, we start to be able to anticipate seasons also. Okay. And that's another very important thing is that, again, I'm not talking about what's unexpected, but what's expected? What happens every year in the month of April, okay, or in the fall, or when we change the hour and then it gets darker outside, or when at work things ramp up, we start to be able to anticipate these things and be able to even look at our schedule and do something as simple as, hey, having a me day in there, okay, having a me day where I can truly be in silence, I can take a walk, I can, and it's focused specifically on that. Or having a date night, it's great to be spontaneous, of course, but being spontaneous all the time is also sometimes, I believe, in my opinion, not necessarily having a plan. Okay. Uh, if you're just relying on that, life also can happen, and something in your life may show up that you might not be able to do that for a month, for 2 months, for 3 months. Okay. Unless you think in quadrant two, okay, and put it in your schedule in advance. So within those seasons, that's a great way to approach it, also, I find, in finding out what's truly important in quadrant through, and putting that in my schedule ahead of time before anything else because I give them importance. Okay. I'm intentionally making sure they get done, but making sure they do fill up my battery. And then every single day I'm doing the small little actions in the now, okay, in the now, that just keeps building momentum, and that really in the end just allows me not to forget my principles, because life is lifing, and it's easy to simply forget our principles. So I say keep it simple. What's most important? Okay, figure that out. What's your vision long term? Figure that out. And then make sure you find a way to keep that ahead of mind, and you find a way to put that in your schedule somewhere. Okay, so it's away from you, it's already there, you can see it. Okay, and now in the day to day, do the little things, okay, that fuel you, do the little things that just allow you as much as possible to not fall off track. And when you do start getting burnt out, okay, it can be at least mitigated or prevented in a way, because ahead of time you've already put moments in there that can help you definitely get out of it. So that's a couple nuggets I like to give. I just find, yeah, control what you can control. And when you get really good at that, you start really focusing on your vision in real time. Okay. And you start to be able to anticipate even seasons and the things that those seasons bring. Um, that can definitely help. And with that, I'll pass the mic.
Yeah, I love it. So here is I'm gonna breathe. Looking at rate, it sounds from me like you put a lot of emphasis on, again, we go back to the pilot metaphor, constant checking in and measuring performance in a way, metrics, if you look at your, what I'm hearing, there's a big emphasis on constant checking, journaling, looking at a template, a blueprint, some way of not just randomly thinking if I'm off track, but actually checking in. It's, again, if we go back to the pilot metaphor, how would you love to fly with a pilot who guesses, think we're on track, feels right, yeah, or you're checking in with a detailed, you want your pilot to be detailed and, really a ninja at details. So that, it sounds a bit like that's a model that you use where you're checking in on yourself. And I love this idea of beginning with the end in mind. As Stephen, again, another one from Stephen's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He says, begin with the end in mind. And what is it that you want? So every so often checking back in, like when I was, if I'm going through a high intense stage and leading to burnout, sometimes you can be so caught up with the situation you're in that you don't do those little check-ins. And because the thing you're dealing with is so intense. And then you're off, before you know it, you're off track. And so the idea then is having that discipline, if you can, uh, having that discipline to check in, see how you're doing. Or this is where having a coach or a therapist that you can check in with, a friend, mentor that keeps you accountable. And I have a few of those that have kept, even this group, the Alliance, having social or paid professionals, mentors to check you in, keeps you accountable. And going for fulfillment, as you say, looking at your fulfillment meter, see if what you're doing is fulfilling you and how can you get back on track. So constant check-in. And then proactive versus reactive modes. Proactive modes is where you are focusing on the controllables. What what can I what can I control in this situation? I know when I was going through my situation, there's a lot. There's an illusion. We all have an illusion of control, that we have any control at all. It's an illusion. You don't have any outside control. The only control you have is your mind and how you show up, your attitude, this your thought process. That's all you have control over. Otherwise, you have control over nothing. This idea that anything outside of you, zero control. So the only thing you have is your mind, your mindset. So I love that you suggested what I'm hearing, my paraphrasing it is we focus on what we can control. Very proactive instead of reactive. Reactive is when we are worried about the politics in the world, when we're worried about things that we have nothing, can't do anything about it. It moves you into this reactive stage, and then you feel helpless. So I love that. So I would add then to it, as you were talking, I was thinking about when you're in that burnout phase, first of all, acknowledge it. Then let it go through you. Don't beat yourself up about not getting to the things you usually get to, not being at the same level of performance that you usually are at. It's okay. And this is why it's also necessary to recognize it. Because once you recognize it, you stop beating yourself up. You start going, and that's what happened to me. I went, oh, this is burnout. This is actually burnout. I actually have never experienced it at this level. I'm sure there's been days when I've had minor burnouts because you're working hard. But this is a mental, emotional, spiritual burnout. It's legit. It's a deep burnout that you can't shake easily. So that's when I realized. And then once you start to realize that, you stop beating yourself up a little bit. Oh, I should have, could have, would have. You're shooting all over yourself. You stop shooting. And you start to realize, oh, fear, it's burnout. Now what am I going to do about it? Go back to what brings you joy. There's certain things when I think back, see, in life, as we said earlier, people who are successful, we'll study anybody who's successful. They have a routine. See, happiness and failure are habits. No one wakes up happy automatically. They wake up with thoughts running through your head. Maybe you're in the future, anxious. Maybe you're in the past, regret. But you're missing the present moment. Those who are happy focus on gratitude. What do they have? They're in the present moment. They're present, and they're reducing time travel. So they have a thing they do. So what brings you joy? I have to go back and remember little things. What were my patterns that put me in a joyous state, that put me in a proactive state? Well, one of them is going back and listening and reading old books that talked about goal setting. Napoleon Hill is a great one for me. Going back and looking at Robin Sharma is a guy I used to read back in the day. And The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari is a book that really, put me in that state. Bob Proctor, so whatever the book is that you go back to, Og Mandino is another one I'm thinking of. Those books back in the day, they put me in I feel good reading them and listening to them. So I'm going to go back to that again to light the fire, spark that fire, get back. And then what is my why? What is my why for doing what I do? Go back and find my why. So again, all of this is renewing your vow. And I wrote this, renew your vow to yourself. It's just like a marriage, right? Renew that vow, for better or for worse, all those kind of things, right? Renew the vow to yourself. Why are you doing this? Why should you do it? Why do you want it? What are you trying to solve? What are you trying to be, do, have? Is it is it the idea that I've gone too far to only come this far? Just keep going. So step back, take some time, and go back to what brings you joy. What are the little things? Going out with friends. I don't know what it is that you do that lights the fire. Talking to that person, if they're still around, hopefully. That mentor, that coach. hanging out with that group of people who light your fire. So that, and this, by the way, is after taking time, the time you need to renew. This is not jumping right, trying to, I'm not suggesting that we do this right out the gate, attempting to squash it if we didn't have time to yourself to reflect on whatever the trauma is, or the trauma, the drama, the thing you've gone through, the business loss, the personal loss, whatever it is, the bankruptcy, whatever is your kryptonite. And then the final one I have here is drink your, dig your well before you're thirsty. I remember my mentor, Dr. Tom Hill, would say, Alvin, he wants me to take a 3-day sabbatical. Go to a place alone, take a few books, a journal, eat lightly, so fasting somewhat, and just be by yourself and think and strategize and so on and so on. And I used to always say to him, I don't have time. I don't have time. And he would always gently push me and nudge me. And I tell you, I did that for years when he's been telling me that. Don't have time. Who has time for 3 days? I got family. I got these commitments. I got all kinds of things going on. Boy, those 3 days, you know what I could get done in those 3 days? But now looking back after the pandemic, actually, I really learned about, and that was forced downtime. I had no options. But then after complaining a little bit during the pandemic, this sucks. I got to be at home. I started to actually like it. And the fact that everyone forgave you for not being on your game because everyone was in the same situation, it kind of gave you an excuse to start enjoying it. I actually don't mind getting up now, and everyone understands, your mortgage company, your freeze, your this, and you have everyone understands that your clients, no one's making it. So you have no excuse. It gave me a really great idea to step back. And that's when I started to go, oh, I see where the Jedi was, where what he was telling me to do. Take some time. And I'm really loving it. So in this case of the burnout is, despite you thinking the next thing to do is to move forward, and I don't need it, just as if water, drink your water. I'm not thirsty. I don't really need it yet. No, drink it before you're thirsty. Dig your well before you're thirsty. And so those are some of the tips I would have myself is find out what brings you joy. What is your why? Renew your vow to yourself and insert planned downtime, which is what I'm going to start doing, is inserting planned downtime despite if I'm thirsty. I'm going to drink my water, dig my well way before. That way it gives me that buffer room, that little, and you said something earlier, life's unexpected things, which I see some of my clients with such a tight, you can't get a wafer in their schedule. That's in their minds, anyways, in my opinion. No one's that busy, but they've stacked up their schedule so tight that they say to themselves, I don't have any time. And I don't know where they're going to put life's unexpected things. So build in life's unexpected things. Leave some room for that because life is lifing and it will show you that you have a lot of time. I love it. Some of you may not know, I'm in the health. That's where my real jam started, was in the health and wellness. And I always get people who don't book their appointments ahead of time, and you call them, they're too busy. Don't see them for years sometimes, and all of a sudden they're hurt. When would you like your appointment? Anytime. I can make myself available. Oh, now you have time. All right, I see how that works. So dig your well before you're thirsty. So Ray, back to you, brother.
That's a powerful one, Charlie. That I'm. Why am I calling you Charlie? Alvin.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Alvin.
Dr. Charlie.
I was in my thoughts
Yeah.
uh, that I'm definitely taking for myself. That one.
Hmm.
Uh, my parents in law, uh, my sons, well, my oldest son, he likes to call them like the adventurers. He sees them as like adventurers. We could literally write a book because every other month they're in some other places in the world doing some really cool stuff, and we get to speak to them on video phone and all of that. But um, they started doing that ever since they both went into retirement. Okay, but it's funny because they do so many things. They're much more busier than when they were working, to a point that they get really tired sometimes. They come back and like they're super tired. And my wife and I just asked them the question. I'm like, hey, why does it seem like you're doing so much? I mean, it's cool what you're doing, but it's like you need to do so much. And then they told me it's because they had a couple health scares in the past few years, and not now that they're healthy, they don't know how long they will be this healthy, so they feel
Hmm.
they have to do everything
Right.
all at once. And sometimes, as fun as it is, it gets exhausting trying to
Right.
do everything all
Hmm.
at once. Okay. And if you look at it, man, sometimes during the week, especially when I feel like that too, when I feel a little bit too exhausted or even burnt out, I realize that, okay, even in the way that I eat, I will sit down and eat like fast or eat
Hmm.
standing up. It's like everything needs to go, 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 and it needs to be the next thing where really what I'm hearing from what you said, Alvin, is that sometimes the best thing to do is simply to be still.
Yeah. And be okay with it.
Yeah, simply to be still, because that's what's more needed than anything else. And once we can do that and be okay with that, as you said, and kind of see whatever is in there, bait in there long enough, then we're ready for what's next. But too often, we tend to think like we need to go at what's next right away, but we're not ready for it.
Hmm.
So that's so true. The planned downtime. And I'm curious to know, the 3 day sabbatical, was he saying it's like one time a year, one time every quarter? How did he approach that? Just out of curiosity.
He was recommended twice a year.
Twice a year?
Twice a year, at least twice a year. He would always hound me on it, hound me on it. But it's so strange looking back that I even found it hard, even just once a year, to
Yeah.
even do that. It's
Yeah.
crazy, right? And it took me forever of him constantly nudging me to even entertain
Mm,
this concept. I think you're crazy. Yeah, it's okay for you. You're at that time, it's probably late 70s.
mm,
He was bugging me from like, he's probably mid to late 70s. Now he's 89, 90 this year. So he was hounding him like, come on, man. I'm not your age. I'm young. I'm gonna go. I got my family. I got my business, and I was not listening.
wow. Okay. Really interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's a
So
great
yeah,
concept.
this the power of just stillness.
Hmm.
Stillness.
Yeah.
Even in anything else, like before, let's say you get into an argument,
Hmm.
and what happens in an argument is both sides are trying to go, 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 go. But once someone takes a deep breath, really slows down, that can change the whole argument.
Yeah.
Just that,
Yeah.
because someone decided to be still. So it's true, it's another principle that
Hmm.
applies.
Yeah.
Um, Now, from that stillness, Another thing also I find is as you start walking the path, even if you don't know exactly where you're going, the way starts to appear.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, who you are surrounded with, you know, your group of friends, your circle, your mentors, whatever, being still, stepping back, doing whatever you're supposed to do in there. But from then, I find that when you're still long enough, you come out with parts of truths in there
Mm-hmm.
because you get to have a little bit more clarity. But I find just like any project in your mind, it's great to have people that you trust that you can throw ideas out. Hey, I'm thinking this. Hey, I'm thinking that. And there's nothing like the collection I find of human minds to take something to the next level, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So if you do have those people in your life, once you get out, of that little bubble that you need, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Having small conversations or just allows you to free yourself of it, but with a different state of mind now, put an idea on the table and get some insight that maybe you haven't seen. And
Mm-hmm.
this adds up to it and adds up, and you take it all for yourself, put things in, and then man, you can come out with a whole different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the way it appears. So yeah, it's so important to have those people in your life and to also take the step when you're ready. Okay. When you're ready, I paraphrase, to let them in. Let them in. If you know they truly wants best for you and they care for you and they're the right people for it, that's another thing. We also have walls sometimes that we stay imprisoned in, you know, that we stay imprisoned in and thinking we're protecting ourselves when really we're the ones that need to break them down in certain situations. Not with everyone. In certain situations, they're supposed to be there. But there are those people in our lives, usually, that it would benefit us to let them in a little bit more and get their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, I'll pass the mic.
All right. So my final word on this, as you were talking about your in-laws, and something I've been encouraging um, my clients to do is building the wow moments in their lives.
Yeah.
Is so while you have stepped back, so now here's the steps. You realize you're performing in quadrant one, three, and four.
Mm,
Either your ass is on fire and you're putting out fires every day, you're just running because you're overbooked, or you are engaging in busy work, meetings again, booking in things that's not necessary. Or the flip side is your time wasters, social media, uh, conversations that you don't need to have about, again, politics that you can't solve, that you're not solving, the latest thing on who's saying what. Then realize, I'm in burnout.
mm,
I'm in burnout mode. I'm not being proactive. So that's first of all, recognition. Secondly, then is what are you going to do? Going back to basics, what brought you joy in the past in your life, and so on and so on.
yeah.
What is your why? Why are you doing this? And giving yourself fear enough time to do nothing, is key. Just hanging out, um, maybe even not doing any of the things we just talked about is also part of the healing journey.
Mm,
Is not getting back to readings and taking a break from it all. for a little while. And then when you come back, insert the things you love doing. Insert that. Digging your well before you're thirsty, booking in. And after you've gotten through it, start to book in those solitude times. Start to book in those more vacation times. And vacation doesn't have to mean spending anything. It could mean taking those, those unused days that you have at work and staying home, getting to those projects the honey-do list that you haven't gotten to yet, things that's been sitting around. That might make you feel good actually to get those brownie points at home and start to renew yourself. And then once you're through it, start to build in the final word is start to build in those wow moments, moments in your life that make you go wow, that was great. A good meal, maybe a vacation, a hike, something that take randomly take days off during the week and go catch a movie. Tuesday movies, for less price because they want to fill out those days. Do something unique. Go take a dance class. Go do something, right? So build those in, those wow moments. And those are the things that make you go, wow. And I've been doing that and encouraging my clients to do that. And it's been a real game changer for a lot of them. They've changed the way they thought, they've changed the way they're treating their family. And so it's been great. So that would be the steps, I think, to really getting out, getting out of burnout. So,
Yeah.
any last words here, Ray?
Hmm. Take care of yourself
Yeah,
so you can, I wouldn't even say take care of others,
yeah,
just so you can bring
your
your full
best.
self to the world,
Yeah, exactly.
which benefits everyone. And
Yeah.
it's easy, it's so easy to forget about us,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
especially, yes, when you're a go getter and when your heart, in some ways, is driven towards contributing,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
it's very easy to forget about you.
Mm-hmm.
And then other people suffer from it,
Yeah.
and you suffer from it also.
Exactly. 100%.
So, a great thing in the end, it starts with us. It
Yeah.
starts with us.
Put your
Taking
mask
care
on.
of us.
Yeah. I love Jim Rohn's quote when he said his wisdom. He said, "Take care of you. Take care of me for you, and
Yes.
you take care of you for me." So awesome. All right. What's our last word there? What's the one word we want to leave with ourselves and share with our audience?
Mm. I will say today, um, stillness
Mm. Mm-hmm.
is a very scary proposition,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
oftentimes, but that's where we're called when required,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we're burnt out. That's where it starts.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it starts. It doesn't start by adding. It's how do we say? In business, they say optimization by
Mm-hmm.
subtraction.
Yep. Yep.
Stillness.
Love
Yeah.
it. And I'm gonna leave it a simple one: self-care.
Yes.
Self-care. What is it that you have to do to have self-care? To take care of self. Again, as Jim Rohn's wisdom said, take care of me for you, and you take care of you for me. That's why I got up in the mornings, and that's why I get up every morning to take care of me for my family. Because I've always said this, and I've seen this with many clients. The usually male partner in the relationship will not take care of themselves because they're stubborn or whatever it might be. And I find women are more trained and conditioned to be introspective about their bodies because every month they can't help but ignore themselves.
Mm,
All right. So they tend to go to doctors more. They tend to take care of themselves more. They tend to go faster. Men don't. And all of a sudden they become a burden once they have that stroke or
mm,
whatever it might be. They become a burden to the partner who has been. So that partner's taking care of themselves and the other one hasn't. and then they become a burden. So take care of you for them. So that would be my parting words is self-care.
Perfect.
All right, awesome. All right, everybody. I hope something in there for those who are out there crushing it, and we love that. Go for it. You're making an impact in the world. However, leave room, as Ray said, for life's unexpected moments. They happen. And we've laid out the steps for you to bring yourself back from the abyss. And I hope they help. So, Ray, until next time, brother, how much are we going to leave these people? We're going to give them a whole lot of peace in your life.
Peace.
All right. A whole lot of love. We're sending you love with a little sprinkle of soul.
So,
That's what I'm talking about. All right. Everybody, until next time when we meet again, take some self care, take some downtime, have some stillness in your life. All right. Peace.